So let's talk about giants. Now, of course, most of the time when someone mentions giants, the first thing that you think about are the giants within the Bible, the Nephilim. These are supposedly how the sons of God's angels descended, and they took the daughters of men as wives, and they took their angel ping-pings, and they made the Nephilim with the human women. So these women had giant babies, and these giant babies came out their poom-poom, and they became the great men of renown. And then later on in the story, they became evil, and they taught men all these wicked ways. But yet the flood destroyed all the giants. But somehow the giants came back. And the giants came back, by most accounts, most Christians will accept the fact that they came back because, oh, the wives of Noah's sons had Nephilim blood in them. Then why would this guy allow for them to survive if he was trying to get rid of giants, knowing that giants would still inhabit the land? Because Nimrod and Og and Goliath were all giants, according to this mythological story. But there are a few who do accept the book of Enoch. And in the book of Enoch, the giant Og was tied to the top of Noah's ark, and therefore he survived. And I guess he must have got some poom-poom from one of Noah's daughter-in-laws, or he married into the Noah family through some of his sons, some of the sons and daughters, well, some of the daughters of the children of Noah. In either account, some also say that the giants, that the Nephilim, the sons of God had a second incursion. And you can find none of those things nowhere within your Bible. It just says that there were still giants in the land. So this God's plan failed. But many people today still believe that there have been giants that have existed, because all over the world, every society, for the most part, have had stories of giants. Whether we're talking about the Greek mythologies with Zeus and fighting against the Titans and the Cyclops and all the other giants, and then befalling them because they built mountains to reach the stars. Or whether we're talking about the Dwapara Yuga, where there were giants in the Vedics that were around 3500 BCE. There are also the stories in Mesoamerica, the stories in the British Isles, the stories all over the world that giants existed. And these stories were told not at the time frame of the giants, but much, much later, when people would create stories, such as we have created stories of Jack and the Beanstalk, and how the beanstalk went up into the sky. And there was a giant who lived there, and Jack chopped down that beanstalk at the last minute so that the giant fell and crashed on earth and died. Men have always been intrigued by the idea of giants. Why is that? The reason why is because it makes for a good story. It makes for a good, as we would say, David and Goliath story, that the average sized man was able to excel over the evil giants who plagued the land. Whether we're talking about the Native American stories of giants who were the mound builders, or the Christian version of those stories, where some sects of Christianity, especially in the 1800s and early 1900s, tried to declare that they were giant Caucasian redheads who built all the mounds throughout the Americas. Even Abraham Lincoln himself, supposedly a self-taught learned man, believed that there were giants. And yet many hoax is the reason why. You see, the hoax goes even as deep as P.T. Barnum, the great circus guy, being one that commissioned a skeleton of a giant to be made after it was already determined to be a hoax, to use as a spectacle for his shows to make money. There are many other hoaxes that were created, whether we're talking about the Ecuadorian giant, which turned out to be a giant sloth, or we're talking about any other giants that were claimed in Nevada, in the Grand Canyon, that have all been proven, whether through Rutgers or the AP Press or other scientific means, to have been hoaxes. There has not been one credible source of giants existing on the planet. As a matter of fact, the Longshan Man, which is the absolute tallest human skeleton we have ever found, was a mere 6 feet 4 inches. Now, of course, we have seen where giantism and acromegalia has been found in human beings. Andre the Giant being one of the most famous ones. I think Andre stood about 8 feet tall. Andre would be considered a giant to us, just as there were other people with giantism, as we have discovered, existed during the Roman era. So when you have a person that stands 2 feet taller than everybody else, they would be considered a giant. But if the average man is 5'9", 5'10", and someone is standing 7'9", 7'10", they would be considered a giant. If you were to be able to transport Wimbignana to the past, he would be considered a giant, amazing to those people. He is still considered a giant to us today, standing at 7'4". So these ideas of giants are all just the fact that people have a desire to believe it. And that desire goes so deep that in 2015, I believe, 2019, when a story on Facebook, no less, began to circulate that the Smithsonian was making a concerted effort to find the giant skeletons and then destroy them because they didn't want people to know. Because people are so mistrusting of the government and any other agencies that are connected to the government, because the Smithsonian is not a government agency, then they have a tendency to believe these things because they have a great desire to fulfill that need of distrusting the government and distrusting any other organization that is beyond their control. For some reason, it makes people feel better about their existence if they can believe that the government has secrets that they are hiding from people. Now, does the government hide secrets? Of course they do. Does the government not tell us everything that's going on? Of course. But is the government trying to hide the fact that giants existed on the planet? You would think that with the overwhelming majority of people who work in government services in the Western community are Christian, that they would want to prove to the world that giants existed, and thereby proving that their Bible is correct when it talked about the Nephilim being a part of human history. It wouldn't have any hindrance to us today to say that giants existed. It would just mean that at a certain time frame, there were giants. They don't control us. They're not gobbling us up, as it says in the book of Enoch, when they began to consume humans. So there is no reason to strike fear in the hearts of people if they said that giants existed. So what reason would they have to keep that information from us? Does it perpetuate white supremacy as it did when the preachers of the 1800s and 1900s began to say that it was long, red-headed white giants that built the mounds in the Americas, and that they existed on the British Isle? It would actually benefit them for it to be realized that giants existed, and they especially existed through the Caucasian bloodlines. But no, they're not perpetuating that story, a story that would actually benefit them. But no, they're not perpetuating a story that was to help to solidify and possibly make people believe that Christianity is true. In fact, the reality is that all stories about giants have been debunked. Every last one of them. So whether we're talking about the Sumerians and their giant Anunnaki, or we're talking about the Vedas in the Dwapara Yuga, no giants existed ever beyond what we can see today as far as people like Andre the Giant who had giantism. So sorry, but there were, just as the Bible has no archaeological history, giants existing is part of that zero number. But y'all have a great day. And always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.